Hello, family. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Surly Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Sophia had always been a romantic at heart. As a teenager, she devoured love stories and believed with unwavering certainty that one day she would find someone who truly saw her, someone who understood her fears and aspirations alike. She thought she had found that person in Daniel. Their marriage had been a fairy tale at first, complete with spontaneous weekend getaways, handwritten notes left on pillows, and a sense of warmth that made everyone around them envy their seemingly unbreakable bond. Family gatherings were filled with laughter and the music of clinking glasses raised in admiration for this couple that appeared to have it all. For years, Sophia basked in the glow of marital bliss, wholeheartedly trusting Daniel. They had built a life that revolved around mutual success, from acquiring their dream house to investing in promising ventures that multiplied their wealth. Her friends would sigh wistfully and say, "You and Daniel have it figured out. You're truly the perfect couple." Sophia would blush and respond with a modest smile, grateful for the harmony she believed she had. Deep down, she felt she had won some cosmic lottery, stumbling upon a man who loved her as fiercely as she loved him. But slowly, cracks began to form in the perfect facade. At first, they were barely noticeable, an offhand comment here, a missed date night there. Daniel started spending late nights at the office, returning home with vague excuses about client dinners and last-minute emergencies. More than once, she'd find wine glasses in the sink and wonder if he had stopped by the house with a friend or colleague without mentioning it. She tried to ignore the growing lump of suspicion in her throat. After all, she reasoned, trusting each other had always been their foundation. Then came the more glaring signs. Daniel began dressing better, as though he needed to impress new clients, or maybe just one new client. He changed his cologne to a scent she hadn't recognized, something dark and magnetic. One evening, as she picked up his jacket off the floor, she caught that new cologne mingled with a faint trace of unfamiliar perfume. She tried to rationalize it, perhaps it was from a hug with a female colleague. Yet doubt gnawed at the back of her mind, like a persistent whisper warning her that something was amiss. Her suspicions escalated when she noticed how Daniel guarded his phone. Where before he'd casually leave it on the couch or kitchen counter, it now never left his side. Its screen was always face down, the passcode changed every few weeks. One night, curiosity got the better of her, and she picked up the phone to check the time, only for Daniel to nearly snatch it out of her hand. He forced a laugh, claiming he had sensitive business emails that prying eyes couldn't see. She wanted to believe him, but her heart pounded with unease. Still, she held on to hope. She convinced herself it was just a difficult phase. Maybe he was under intense pressure at work, maybe the weight of their joint business ventures was too heavy on his shoulders. Sophia considered surprising him at his office with lunch, a small token of affection to remind him they were a team. However, each time she suggested it, he offered a quick excuse not to come. She tried to quell her doubts by planning a romantic getaway, only to have him postpone it repeatedly, claiming board meetings and investor presentations took precedence. With every excuse, her heart sank deeper. The final blow came when she found the receipt. Sophia was putting away laundry, sorting through Daniel's jacket pockets when her fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper. She expected it to be some routine expense, maybe a credit card slip for one of his fancy lunches. Instead, it was a receipt for a diamond ring, an exquisite piece worth more than any jewelry he had ever gifted her. The date on the receipt was just a few days prior. Her heart slammed against her rib cage, a tumult of hope and dread swirling within her. Their anniversary was around the corner. Perhaps he intended to renew their vows or surprise her in a grand, romantic gesture. For an excruciating moment, she nearly convinced herself of that fairy tale scenario. But she couldn't ignore the dissonance between the ring receipt and his recent behavior. If the ring was for her, wouldn't he have been kinder or more excited? Why was his phone so heavily guarded, and why did he keep drifting away? Unanswered questions burned in her chest, fueling a restless night of tossing and turning. By the time morning arrived, Sophia wasn't sure whether to cling to hope or accept the terrifying possibility that he was cheating. She stared at the receipt one more time, her hands trembling. The numbers shimmered like an accusation, mocking the naive trust she had once worn like a shield. She needed to know the truth, no matter how devastating it might be. And so, with her heart clenched in both hope and dread, she began her journey to uncover whether Daniel's receipt was for a grand show of love or the ultimate betrayal. Sophia's anxiety mounted with each passing day. She felt trapped in a world that seemed to mock her, as if the universe itself were whispering that something was terribly wrong. Unable to quell the storm of suspicion raging inside her, she decided she needed answers, real, tangible proof. One night, when Daniel came home later than usual, reeking of expensive cologne and wearing that secretive smile, she resolved that her patience had run its course. She would no longer passively wait to discover the truth. After a strained dinner filled with forced small talk, Daniel retreated to bed early, claiming exhaustion. Sophia watched him from across the living room, her mind swirling with plans. She made herself wait until she heard the soft cadence of his snores. Slowly, she tiptoed into the bedroom, the phone's glow guiding her shaky fingers. The device was locked, of course, but she'd memorized his passcode from the brief moment he had typed it in months ago. She caught sight of it in a reflection on a mirror. To her relief, he hadn't changed it yet. Her heart thundered in her chest as the screen unlocked. She almost felt guilty for invading his privacy. But each pang of guilt was overshadowed by the memory of the suspicious late nights, the hidden ring receipt, and the shift in his demeanor. It felt as if her entire life hinged on what she might find. A swirl of app icons glowed on the screen, but she went straight to his messages, ignoring the voice in her head that begged her to put the phone back and walk away. As soon as she tapped on the messaging app, a new text lit up the top of the screen. "I can't wait for you to make it official on Friday. Love you, baby red heart." The sender was listed as an unknown number. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Her vision blurred for a moment as a nauseating sense of dread washed over her. She tapped on the thread, scrolling upwards, feeling her stomach churn with each passing line. The messages revealed a story she had dreaded but half expected. The unknown number belonged to a woman named Bella, who was not just a fling. She was someone Daniel had apparently developed deep feelings for. The texts were full of flirtatious banter, innuendo, and confessions of love. References to secret lunches, hotel rendezvous, and, worst of all, an upcoming date at their favorite restaurant on Friday. Bella wrote about how she couldn't wait to flaunt the ring, how she was thrilled to become Mrs. Scott after Daniel officially left his wife. Sophia's heart pounded so violently that she feared Daniel might wake from the sound. Yet he remained asleep, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing mere inches away. A stinging heat crept behind her eyes, but tears refused to fall. Her entire body felt numb, as if some invisible force had flipped her emotional switch from devastation to cold resolve. She read on, forcing herself to absorb every last detail of Daniel's treachery. The final text from Bella read, "I'm counting down the hours until you're finally free from her. Then we'll be together, no more sneaking around." Something in Sophia snapped. She could have thrown the phone across the room, screamed awake the betrayer lying beside her, and demanded an explanation. But she didn't. Instead, she quietly placed the phone back on the nightstand. She gazed down at Daniel, who looked so peaceful in his slumber. She realized that the man she loved had systematically lied to her, planned to leave her humiliated, and had even stolen the significance of their anniversary to propose to another woman. Oddly, a sense of eerie calm settled over her. The panic and sorrow curdled into a potent mixture of heartbreak and fury. Deep in her mind, a plan began to take shape, fueled by the knowledge that she could no longer be the loyal, trusting wife who looked the other way. If Daniel wanted to embarrass her, she would ensure that his betrayal wouldn't just be a private heartbreak. No, she would make sure it was exposed in a way he would never forget. As she stood there in the dim light, the knowledge of his affair felt like a weight pressing against her chest, crushing her illusions of a devoted husband. But that very weight granted her a sobering clarity. She was not going to wither away in silence. She would not confront him in a tear-streaked rage that he could later dismiss as emotional or irrational. Instead, she resolved to create a scenario that would lay bare his deceit before all who once admired him and the life he pretended to cherish. Stepping away from the bed, she padded softly out of the room and closed the door behind her. She felt as if she were exiting one life and stepping into another, a life in which she held the reins, where betrayal would not be endured quietly but avenged spectacularly. Her heart hammered, but her mind was clear, trained on the single thought that she would be the one to walk away with her pride and power intact. She would transform his grand betrayal into a stage for her own reckoning. Sophia's first move was reaching out to an old friend who worked in private investigations, a woman named Amelia who had once helped corporate clients gather evidence for internal fraud. They had gone to college together and remained on good terms, though they rarely spoke. When Sophia dialed Amelia's number, her voice quivered slightly with residual shock, but each ring fortified her determination. By the time Amelia answered, Sophia had composed herself enough to speak calmly. "Amelia, I have a job for you," Sophia began. "I need detailed records of someone's activities, phone logs, photos, videos, evidence that will stand up in court. I can pay your usual fees, plus extra for speed." Her direct tone underscored the urgency. Amelia asked few questions, sensing the gravity in Sophia's voice. By the end of the call, it was decided, evidence collection would start immediately. Within a day, Amelia's associate would begin tailing Daniel to record every covert meeting and snap every damning photo. Armed with professional help, Sophia moved on to her second goal, protecting her assets. Though she and Daniel had amassed a substantial fortune together, she had always been the more financially savvy partner. She took the lead on most business decisions while Daniel contributed ideas and connections. Now she leveraged that advantage. She met with her lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Claudia, who had handled Sophia's contract negotiations in the past. Confidentially, Sophia explained the situation, her suspicions, the evidence, and her plan to divorce if it all proved true. Claudia listened intently, jotting down notes before leaning back in her leather chair. "Sophia," she said, a mixture of empathy and admiration in her eyes, "I'll do everything in my power to ensure you come out of this unscathed. If he really is cheating, and if you have proof, your leverage is immense. We can initiate the transfer of certain joint assets into your name alone. It's perfectly legal as long as everything is transparent and trackable. I'll also file preliminary divorce paperwork under seal, so it doesn't become public until you're ready." Sophia left the lawyer's office feeling a surge of empowerment. She had a plan and the legal support to carry it out. The next day, she began the process of shifting funds, signing documents, and initiating the sale of a few properties that were more in Daniel's name. By the end of the week, she had secured liquid capital that could sustain her for a long time, money Daniel would not be able to access easily once their split became official. While the paperwork churned, Amelia provided regular updates. She sent Sophia a stream of incriminating photos and message logs, Daniel and Bella entering a boutique hotel with entwined hands, checking in under false names, dinner reservations at exclusive spots that were once special only to Daniel and Sophia, phone records that showed the frequency of their late-night calls and texts. Each new piece of evidence tightened the knot in Sophia's stomach, but it also fueled her resolve. She could almost picture the heartbreak she would feel if she confronted him directly now. Instead, she stored every detail like ammunition, building up to the day she planned to use it all. The final piece of the puzzle was the restaurant. Sophia knew Daniel planned to propose to Bella on the very night of their anniversary, at the same upscale restaurant where he and Sophia had celebrated their engagement years ago. That knowledge stung like a fresh wound. The betrayal felt doubly cruel, as if he were rewriting their history with someone else. She decided that if Daniel wanted to stage a romantic spectacle, she would give him the show of a lifetime. She called the restaurant manager, a polite woman who recognized Sophia's name instantly. "Hello," Sophia began. "I have a reservation for a special evening, but I'd like to make a slight change." Her voice sounded sweet, almost conspiratorial, as she explained her request. She made sure to book the same private room Daniel had reserved, ensuring that when he arrived, he would be seamlessly guided there. The manager, clearly eager to please a wealthy patron, agreed to every detail. Sophia hung up, envisioning the scene she planned to orchestrate, a moment of cinematic revelation that would leave Daniel reeling. Although the mechanics of her plan were set, Sophia still battled waves of emotion. At random moments during the day, folding laundry, checking emails, even brushing her hair, she would feel a tightness in her chest as she remembered the love she had once shared with Daniel. She thought about their spontaneous beach trips, the nights they laughed until they cried, the time he asked her to dance under the stars at a friend's wedding. The memories clashed brutally with the present reality of his betrayal. Yet each time she felt herself falter, she reminded herself of Bella's mocking texts, the ring receipt, and Daniel's smug confidence that Sophia remained in the dark. Those images sustained her, fueling a focused determination that blotted out the pangs of sorrow. She would not be the hapless wife who uncovered an affair and quietly slunk away. Instead, she'd channel her pain into a spectacle of truth, ripping away the lies and illusions in one decisive stroke. And so, under the quiet surface of everyday life, Sophia meticulously laid her trap. She attended social events with a poised smile, answered Daniel's texts with feigned normalcy, and even indulged in polite dinner conversation when he bothered to show up at home. Outwardly, they were still the golden couple. Inwardly, she was steeling herself for the inevitable climax that would shatter their picture-perfect image forever. Friday arrived like the final act of a play that had been meticulously orchestrated behind thick curtains. All day, Sophia felt a coil of anticipation in her stomach, a blend of adrenaline and nerves that made her hands tremble when she tried to lift her coffee mug. She'd slept little, her mind spinning with every imaginable scenario. Would Daniel suspect something was off? Would Bella sense danger? Each possibility replayed in her head, yet she clung to her plan, knowing she had arranged all the pieces with care. When evening finally came, Sophia dressed with methodical elegance. She chose a sleek black dress that accentuated her figure without drawing undue attention. The effect was powerful but understated. She wanted Daniel's first glimpse of her to evoke memories of the woman he once cherished, while simultaneously highlighting that she had grown beyond his reach. Slipping on a pair of heels, she glanced in the mirror and saw a determined woman staring back, not a betrayed wife. Meanwhile, Daniel was already at the restaurant with Bella. Amelia texted updates. They're seated in the lounge, waiting for the private room. Bella is glowing, Daniel looks smug. Each word fueled Sophia's resolve. She arrived at the restaurant discreetly, guided through the back entrance by the manager who nodded in silent acknowledgement of the plan. The private room awaited, outfitted with audiovisual equipment she had requested. A microphone stood near an empty space that would serve as her stage. Inside, the setup was deceptively romantic, a candlelit table, fresh roses, and delicate stemware. It was exactly what Daniel had envisioned for his grand proposal. Sophia took her seat in a corner, heart pounding in her throat as she waited. Outside, she could hear muffled clinks of silverware and hushed chatter. The clock on her phone showed that Daniel's reservation time had arrived. Any moment now, a waiter would guide them into this room where everything would unfold. Finally, the door swung open. Daniel and Bella walked in, hands clasped. Bella's eyes sparkled with anticipation, a wide grin plastered on her face. Daniel wore a confident smile, until his gaze landed on Sophia, seated casually, her legs crossed, microphone in hand. The color drained from his face. Bella froze, her smile faltering as she registered the presence of the wife Daniel had claimed he was about to leave. "Good evening," Sophia said, her voice resonating in the intimate space. She rose gracefully, the microphone amplifying her words. "I see you've brought a guest to our anniversary celebration, Daniel. How thoughtful." Bella's eyes darted between Sophia and Daniel. What is this?" she asked, her voice wavering. She let go of Daniel's hand, inching backward as though realizing she had stepped into a lion's den. Daniel regained a semblance of composure, clearing his throat. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" His tone attempted authority, but it cracked under pressure. This is not what it looks like." "Oh really?" Sophia's tone dripped with feigned curiosity. Then why not enlighten us? She pressed a button on her phone, and the screen behind her flickered to life. The hush in the room turned to stunned silence as images began to play. Photos of Daniel and Bella holding hands, locked in passionate kisses, entering a hotel lobby together. Gasps rippled from nearby tables in the restaurant that were close enough to hear or peer in through the open door. Bella's hand flew to her mouth. "Daniel," she hissed, her face contorting in horror as the full scale of the ambush dawned on her. "What? How?" But Sophia wasn't done. She flipped to screenshots of text messages, sweet nothings, plans for a future together, and disparaging remarks about how Daniel would soon be rid of Sophia. Each incriminating exchange appeared on the screen, accompanied by the soft beep of the projector. Bella's eyes glistened, and Daniel's expression morphed from shock to dread. "Sophia, wait." Daniel tried to step forward, hands raised as if in surrender. She held up her hand, silencing him. "Daniel, you made a choice. You orchestrated an affair and planned to propose to another woman on our anniversary. Now it's time to face the consequences." She leveled her gaze at Bella. "I just wanted to meet the woman who thought it appropriate to sneak around with a married man." The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Bella, now pale, looked ready to bolt. Daniel stammered incoherently, reaching a trembling hand toward Sophia. She stepped back, her posture regal, her composure unnervingly calm. Then came the crescendo. Sophia dug into her purse and extracted a folder of neatly arranged documents. She dropped them onto the table with a crisp thud. "Divorce papers," she announced, letting the word ring out. "I've already signed them. You should too." Daniel's jaw slackened. He flipped through the papers, his panic deepening as he recognized the legal ramifications. "You can't do this," he sputtered. Our accounts." She raised an eyebrow. "About that, I've moved all our shared assets. The cars, the properties, the business shares. You have nothing left. Not a penny." A wave of whispers cascaded through the small crowd that had gathered at the door. Bella, realizing the magnitude of Daniel's sudden impoverishment, glowered at him. "You said you'd be fine. You told me we'd be loaded." Her voice cracked, tears threatening to spill. Daniel stood there, exposed in the worst possible way. No carefully crafted lie could save him. He turned desperate eyes on Bella, but she snatched her purse and stormed out, high heels clacking on the polished floor. The audience parted to let her flee. "And just like that," Sophia said softly, "you lose everything." Daniel pleaded, "Sophia, please, listen, we can talk about this." But his words fell on deaf ears. Sophia calmly set the microphone on the table and made her exit, the overhead light gleaming on her figure as she walked away without looking back. Behind her, Daniel stood alone. In the days that followed, the story of Daniel's humiliating public proposal turned disaster spread like wildfire. A shaky but crystal-clear video, recorded by a quick-thinking diner, captured the entire scene, from the moment Sophia greeted the unsuspecting couple to the devastating reveal of Daniel's affair. Within hours of being uploaded, the video went viral, racing across social media platforms and gossip blogs. Reactions poured in by the thousands, ranging from shocked sympathy for Sophia to vicious condemnation of Daniel's betrayal. Sophia was initially overwhelmed. She hadn't anticipated that her carefully executed revenge would become an internet sensation, but there it was. Headlines screaming, "Savage wife exposes cheating husband in epic showdown." GIFs capturing Daniel's panicked face looped over and over, and talk show pundits speculating about the legal fallout. While some might have felt uncomfortable under such a glaring spotlight, Sophia found a strange sense of validation. The world had seen Daniel's cruelty, and she was no longer the naive wife in the shadows. Messages from friends and acquaintances bombarded her phone. Some apologized for never suspecting Daniel's disloyalty, others congratulated her on her boldness. Even old high school friends she barely remembered reached out with supportive words. Meanwhile, the legal matters progressed with startling speed. Claudia, her lawyer, deftly processed the paperwork. The divorce would be finalized in record time, especially given the incriminating evidence that placed Daniel at a significant disadvantage. Daniel, on the other hand, found himself spiraling into a nightmare of consequences. News of the scandal impacted his business relationships. Longtime partners distanced themselves, fearful that the bad press would tarnish their joint ventures. One of their most significant deals, which had been in its final stages, abruptly fell through. Investors weren't eager to associate with a man whose personal meltdown was front-page gossip. And while he tried to blame Sophia for exposing him so publicly, everyone around him saw that he dug his own grave the moment he decided to cheat on his wife and lie about his intentions. Bella was nowhere to be found. She ghosted him after realizing he no longer held the keys to an affluent, privileged future. In a series of frantic phone calls, Daniel tried pleading with her, leaving voicemail after voicemail that alternated between apologetic whimpers and outraged accusations. But Bella never responded. She had moved on, not wanting to remain attached to a scandal that offered her nothing but public scorn. She would later resurface on social media, flaunting a new fling, leaving Daniel to wallow in the mess he created. With each passing day, Sophia felt a sense of liberation. At first, she worried she might be consumed by guilt or sadness. After all, she had spent a decade of her life building a marriage with Daniel, sharing dreams of a growing business and, perhaps one day, children. But as she woke up to each morning, she discovered a newfound freedom in breathing air untainted by lies. The heartbreak was still there, like a bruise that hadn't fully faded, but her sense of self-worth soared. She realized that she had grown accustomed to playing a supportive role, letting Daniel's needs overshadow her own. Now, unchained from that dynamic, she could finally ask herself, "What do I want?" She decided to travel. Using a portion of the money she had secured, she booked a one-way ticket to Italy, a place she'd always dreamed of visiting. Strolling through the cobblestone streets of Rome, she savored gelato and admired ancient ruins. She visited art galleries in Florence and took a spontaneous detour to the Amalfi Coast. Each location felt like a step away from the life she once knew, a new chapter in which she could star as the protagonist of her own story. Throughout her travels, she posted occasional photos online, not to brag but to affirm her sense of independence. Her friends back home responded enthusiastically, cheering her on and sending travel tips. Some even commented with playful nods to her viral fame, but she tried not to dwell on that. She was far more interested in tasting every flavor of gelato than reliving a painful chapter. Meanwhile, Daniel's life unraveled further. He struggled to maintain the mortgage on what used to be their shared house, which Sophia had already restructured under her name. He eventually had to pack his belongings and move out, facing the humiliation of leaving the home he once proudly flaunted as a testament to their success. His frantic attempts to rebuild trust with old clients mostly fell on deaf ears. The pitying looks he received were almost worse than outright rejection. Friends they once shared had to pick sides, and most gravitated toward Sophia. She was the wronged party, after all. Her decency and kindness had long been evident, whereas Daniel's deceit left him standing in a lonely corner of his own making. Rumors swirled that he spent nights in cheap hotels, nursing drinks at the bar as he scrolled through the viral clip that had destroyed his reputation. Sophia heard only fragments of these rumors from mutual friends. She neither rejoiced in his suffering nor felt compelled to offer comfort. The ache he had caused her was too deep, and the scars too raw. She wasn't a saint, but she refused to let anger consume her. Her life was hers now, and no memory of Daniel's betrayal would define her future. And so, while Daniel's world crumbled, Sophia continued to rise. She had money, freedom, and a renewed sense of self. It was a new dawn in her life, and she intended to greet every sunrise with the confidence that she had chosen herself when no one else did. Months slipped by, and although the internet's attention pivoted to other scandals and viral stories, the memory of Sophia's dramatic unveiling never entirely faded. Occasionally, a snippet of the video or a witty meme referencing Daniel's downfall would resurface, garnering fresh comments and likes. Sophia, however, was no longer the shell-shocked woman from that night. She had evolved, her experiences hardening her resolve and shaping her ambitions into something formidable. By the time she returned from her extended travels, the divorce had been finalized. Claudia handed her the official decree, embossed with the court seal, signifying the legal end to her marriage. Holding the document in her hands felt surreal. She was free. The settlement granted her nearly everything: property, stocks, and a comfortable bank balance, leaving Daniel with a fraction of what once had been his. She wasn't out to ruin him financially for sport, but she also refused to pity a man who had tried to replace her so callously. Upon settling back in her hometown, she discovered that word of her newfound independence had sparked business inquiries. Several local entrepreneurs reached out, intrigued by the savvy financial decisions she had made under pressure. She realized she possessed a reputation not just as the wronged wife, but also as a sharp, strategic thinker. Encouraged by this interest, she decided to launch her own consulting firm, aiming to guide other individuals, particularly women, through the maze of investment and wealth management. Before long, her client roster was filled with people who admired her story of turning heartbreak into a renaissance. Her first big project was hosting a seminar titled, "Rising Above It All: Financial Empowerment After Personal Turmoil." The event sold out quickly, drawing everyone from recent divorcees to women who simply wanted greater control over their finances. Standing at the podium on the day of the seminar, Sophia looked out at the sea of expectant faces. She recounted her experiences, carefully omitting overly personal details, and shared the critical steps that had helped her secure her future. The audience gave her a standing ovation at the end, many remarking how they felt emboldened to reclaim their own power. Meanwhile, Daniel's descent hit rock bottom. He attempted to repair his own business relationships, but the damage was far-reaching. His pride prevented him from accepting smaller deals or lesser positions, so he stumbled from one dead-end pitch to another, failing to regain the status he'd once effortlessly flaunted. At nights, he would scroll through online posts about Sophia's successful seminar, reading comments praising her resilience. Bitterness gnawed at him, but he didn't have the means or the moral ground to fight back. Spurred by envy, he tried reaching out to Sophia multiple times. Short texts at first, vaguely apologizing, testing the waters. "Sophia, can we talk? Please. I need to make amends." When she didn't reply, the messages became more desperate and self-pitying. "We have a history. It can't just end like this." Eventually, they escalated to phone calls, which she consistently ignored. She was done letting him occupy space in her life. Their chapter was closed, and she refused to reopen it. One afternoon, as she was preparing for a client meeting, she looked at her phone and noticed a single voicemail from Daniel. Against her better judgment, she pressed play. His voice cracked with despair. "Sophia, I'm sorry. For everything. I know I messed up. I was a fool to think I could replace you. If you ever find it in your heart to forgive me, please call me back." She exhaled softly, feeling a slight twinge of regret for the man Daniel used to be, the thoughtful lover who would dance with her in the kitchen. But that version of Daniel was long gone, replaced by a selfish soul who only realized her worth once he lost her. Later that evening, she curled up on her couch, a cup of tea warming her hands as she mulled over Daniel's voicemail. She recalled the early days of their marriage, the laughter and excitement, the sense that they were partners forging a bright future together. A wisp of nostalgia brushed her heart. Yet the betrayal was too profound. She could not ignore how he had shattered her trust, nor did she want to revert to a life overshadowed by his ambitions and deceptions. She owed herself more than that. So she did nothing about the voicemail, letting it fade into the digital ether. Instead, she refocused on her new business venture, determined to expand her reach. Offers to speak at larger conferences rolled in, and she accepted them eagerly. Each event provided a platform to inspire others, many of whom had endured heartbreak or betrayal. The applause and heartfelt testimonials fueled her resolve. She was, in essence, building an empire upon the ashes of a marriage that once confined her. In time, the day came when Daniel stood at her doorstep unannounced, disheveled and contrite. He pleaded for another chance, tears brimming in his eyes as he tried to resurrect old memories of their love. Sophia listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When he finally stopped talking, she simply looked at him and said, "I've moved on, Daniel. I suggest you do the same." She closed the door, heart steady, shoulders squared. In that moment, she felt the final threads connecting her to Daniel snap free. The woman who once trembled in the face of her husband's betrayal had grown into someone stronger, wiser, and fiercely independent. And so the last laugh belonged to Sophia, not through malicious glee, but through the serene knowledge that she had risen above a devastating betrayal. She had found her wings in the wreckage, transforming pain into power and heartbreak into a roadmap for her future. No matter how many times Daniel tried to twist the narrative, the truth remained. She had reclaimed her life, and she wasn't looking back. The end. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.